Hi folks, this is Dr. Kat Schreier. Welcome back to another one of our Water Goes virtual interview series, and we're really excited today because, throughout the year, there's so many different water-related organizations, associations, and various types and sorts and sizes, and the big kahuna, the biggest of the year, is the Water Environment Federation's Technical Exposition Conference, WEFTEC. And we have here with us today the incoming president, old friend of mine, Lynn Broaddus. Lynn, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here, and it's an exciting time.
So yeah, let's just kind of roll into this in terms of so next week there is going to be an event that WEF has created now that we're all going virtual. And we're going to get to how that's has all come together, but just real quickly, you want to let them know the standard one-liner or your perspective of what does WEF mean to you in the WEFTEC event?
Well, WEF to me means everybody working in this water sector, my water colleagues, whether they be running a plant, whether they be operating a lift station, whether they be designing those things, making the materials that are needed to function there, whether they're in a leadership role, maybe even in an elected or appointed role, or a water advocate like myself. I mean, it's all of us there together. And so WEF is the place where we all come together to advance the sector and to support each other in the work that we do and the policies that are needed around water, so that we can provide clean water for everybody on this planet. And WEFTEC, we have a lot of events throughout the year, but WEFTEC is traditionally our big event. And we, of course, had hoped that it would be in New Orleans this year. We have it there every other year with, usually around 23,000 or so people. It's kind of overwhelming, but it's also the place to be. And you get to hear about all the technologies, the latest studies, the newest innovations that are out there. Some of them, very small startup companies with just exciting ideas that can help transform our sector. Obviously, we're not meeting in person this year, but we're pretty excited about the alternative. Yes, it's going to launch on, it does open up today. We can start getting in there and filling out our profiles and making connections today, but the sessions the live sessions will start on Monday, October 5th. So.
Nice. Yeah. And so, if you're watching this and you've been thinking about how do we stay connected with people, this is really, kind of the two big dogs in the certainly on the utility side of water. You've also got water resources management, floods, all the other things, but really there's American Water Works Association more on the water supply, drinking water municipal side, and Water Environment Federation traditionally was kind of on the other end of on the other side of cleaning the water and putting it back into the environment. But then with so much happening over the years in terms of recycling and doing more of that one water approach of being able to capture, treat, and bring back into the system for other uses, potable, drinking potable or non-potable.
Well, when you think about things in that one water context, and I'm a systems thinker by nature, and it's really hard to draw a line between, in more and more every day, it's harder to draw a line between wastewater and water supply. And of course, we hate to use the term wastewater because it implies that it's waste. It's just, you got to get rid of it, and nothing could be further from the truth. But it's the term we're kind of comfortable and used to using. But some people might say enriched water because it's got all kinds of other stuff in it. But yeah, so WEF certainly kind of owns the space around wastewater treatment and cleaning and recovery of resources from wastewater, if you will. We more and more are serving the stormwater sector because a lot of times our the wastewater or resource recovery facilities are also the same utilities handling stormwater. So And you know, the two challenges are hard to separate, at least in a municipal setting. And then with water reuse, it's really hard to separate those things out. And I think that you'll find in the WEFTEC Connect lineup that there are sessions for all of those things. And maybe this is a good, I don't know, Kat, if this is the right place to maybe say something about WEFTEC Connect a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
So, you know, the decision to go all virtual, it didn't happen overnight. We, of course, early in this pandemic, though the epidemiologists might have had a pretty good sense of where things were going, the rest of us were hopeful that maybe we'll still be able to meet in person by October. And we actually, our volunteers and staff, bless them, they were trying to plan for multiple scenarios. They were trying to plan for what we called a hybrid event. And then they were trying to plan for if we needed to go virtual, and around, you know, became, as the months went by, it just became increasingly clear that it was hard for them to plan for multiple things, you know, and we just needed to make a decision. And so in June, we made that decision that we were going to go all virtual. And that really unleashed staff and volunteers, and there are hundreds of volunteers involved in putting this together, not to mention staff and contractors, unleashed them to really focus on the virtual event and making that the best event it could be. And one of the reasons we're really excited about this platform, and that we've all been to a lot of virtual meetings over the last couple of months, but we feel pretty strongly that this platform will really allow for connection and engagement. And that's why we're calling it WEFTEC Connect, and we want people to be able to take advantage of those opportunities for engagement, not just listening to technical sessions, though that's really important, but engaging with those presenters, engaging with the exhibitors that will be there. And we believe that there's actually some pretty exciting opportunities here to engage way more people than we would in a normal in-person WEF year. And we're really curious to see what we learn and the pieces that we might want to carry forward even when we're able to meet in person again.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, you know, this is what was driving the creation of WaterCitizen 10 years ago, that, you know, seeing these opportunities at all these meetings we would have, you know, planning meetings and charrettes and symposiums and public outreach and whatever. And it's like, you know, just seeing the opportunities that were already starting to develop them. But a lot of it was just on the acceptance side, and the idea that, you know, can we do water without being face to face, belly? I mean, we're face to face, but we're not, you know, belly to belly in the same room. What was that like when you guys first? So, I mean, as president-elect, you were part of those initial board meetings and conversations with staff. What was that process of acceptance that you folks?
Yeah, and I was president-elect, and I was also chair of our WEFTEC advisory committee, which sort of put me a little bit closer into those decisions and seeing the challenges that staff were having, and then also in particular our program committee. The program committee is that group of volunteers that selects what's going to be in the WEFTEC program, and then works to, you know, they review all the applications and then works to actually, you know, make those presentations, you know, line them up and help the presenters, you know, be able to do that. And yeah, because there were so many changes and so many decisions being made, and this was new, not just to us, but relatively new for our contractor, the platform that we're using, a company called Freeman. But once we made that decision, I think people, although certainly there were challenges along the way, people really worked in good faith. We all knew that we were doing our best, and that there, you know, the event is going to have glitches. Even an in-person event has little things that happen. Maybe most people don't notice them, but and that we wouldn't be too hard on ourselves if, you know, witness those things happen. But I'll tell you, so far, all all the technical presentations, they were loaded up as of like 2 weeks ago or something, and it's close to 500, 480 something technical presentations that are loaded up, and there will be a handful of them that are going to be actual live presentations. Most of them are pre-recorded, but then you can have chat functionality relative to that. But there are a couple of things that are just so exciting that we could never do in person. Mm-hmm. One of them is, because all these sessions, anybody can go to any of these sessions, right? And so there's no such thing as getting to a room and realizing that it's standing room only and they're not going to let you into that room. That's not going to happen. We can all get to all the sessions. And actually it will allow WEF and our program committee to get a really good sense of where people's interests are and what's most popular, what's most in demand. It also means that if you get into a session and realize, oh, that's not quite what I thought it was, you can easily then switch into one that's more appropriate for you without having to take up a seat for, in a space that maybe isn't, all that directly useful for you. Certainly are not going to have any blisters on our feet. So that part's good. But also, we're excited that people who maybe otherwise couldn't have, for whatever reason, they couldn't come to in-person WEFTEC. In-person WEFTEC is very expensive. In addition to the registration, you've got to pay for hotel, transportation, food and beverage. That becomes a multi-$1,000 endeavor. And you have to be away from, depending on your family situation, you may have people back at home that really need you on a day-to-day basis, whether it's young children or people with special needs or the farm that you run on the side or whatever it is that you can't get away. Or maybe you're in a really hard place to travel from. If you're in Hawaii, the rural areas of, well, all of Alaska is rural pretty much. If you're in Alaska, if you're in another country beyond the US, it's just hard to get here. And we're very excited that this online platform makes it available to pretty much everybody who has broadband, which is certainly a much broader group of people than can easily travel to WEFTEC.
Yeah, and it's really, that's really a critical part, even within, this country and in the US and Canada, and how many of the folks that need the technical expertise, the utility management expertise, understanding the new technologies in the mid-sized, smaller, rural utilities where, you're the chief cook and bottle washer and you go off to a conference and something goes wrong back at your plant, there's not a deep bench there. There's not a lot of other people there.
Right. Because things are so much more dependent on you. And for someone like that, it may even be hard for them to allocate a week for virtual connection. But one of the other really great things about this platform is that because everything's recorded, even if it's live, it will then be recorded as it's given live. These things are going to be available for a full year up until the next WEFTEC. So, you could say, okay, this is a lot for me to swallow. I'm just going to allocate, Tuesday and Thursday lunches to be able to watch something. And you can get, you can extend your content. You can invite someone to come sit at your desk, I guess, and watch with you, in February, something that you saw that was really cool earlier in the year. So the fact that the content will live for 365 days is also really, well, it's exciting to us, but we hope that allows for the ability to reach a much broader audience and those who may have been felt cut out of WEFTEC in the past.
Yeah. And really, it's a big deal for those of us in, or water professionals. And I heard another interview that you recently did with someone who's kind of more on the exhibitor side. And there is that whole, the young professional, people are new and, what are the cool things to do. But also for those of us who are professionals who, maintaining our expertise and staying at the cutting edge and everything, we need to be, and not only to, attend, but also to present. And depending on who we're working for, if we're with a large enough organization that can cover those costs, or how they select who gets to go, you know, when we start talking about diversity and inclusion kinds of things, I mean, that can really change the trajectory of a career path.
Yes. And, you know, you think of that inclusion piece. When I came to my first WEFTEC, and at that point I was well into my career and I thought I knew so many people and blah, 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 blah. And I remember walking into that first WEFTEC and going like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody here. And it was really overwhelming in a physical way. And I'm an outgoing person. And so I can't imagine what it would be like for someone who either was a little bit less outgoing than me, or that they felt different enough that that just being in that group made them feel like they stood out in a way that they didn't want to stand out. And that's a great thing about this virtual platform is it's just a much easier entry point. And hopefully, you know, everybody will take advantage of the opportunities with this platform, not just to listen, but to actually meet people by video, you know, and get to make a few new colleagues, so that then when they do go to an in-person meeting, whether it's WEFTEC or one of our specialty conferences or something in their state or country, that they will have a few more familiar faces, that so it won't be quite as overwhelming when they do come in person. And let me just say, you know, my understanding, and of course the WEFTEC hasn't started yet. I haven't had a chance to really try this, but my understanding is that we all fill out our profile so that then people, you know who we are and all that kind of stuff. That will also make it easier for the software. The platform has some machine learning in it, and once it figures out kind of who you are and the kind of other people that you're interested in, it supposedly might make some suggestions for others that you might want to meet. But whether you're following the guidance and the suggestions that the platform provides, or you're just using your own, my understanding is that we have the ability to sort of instantaneously pretty much have a video meeting with anybody that we want to meet out there. So if it's a prospective, you know, company you might be interested in, you want to know more about their equipment, of course, through the exhibitor pathway, you definitely can make appointments with exhibitors and have real-time conversations with them and invite other people to come into those real-time conversations. And so that hopefully will be actually a much more efficient way to visit exhibitors, instead of having to walk a mile up and down the
yeah. And you know, I want to emphasize this for anyone who hasn't been to a mega conference like this. It is literally miles.
Yes, it is.
Make such a difference if you get out of one session and realize that the next technical session is 3 halls down, or that you need to meet with someone in the exhibit hall and then you get turned around and you can't figure out which side is which, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands of booths there.
That's right. And even for an able-bodied person like myself, it is exhausting. It is absolutely physically exhausting. I've never worn one of those apps to tell me how many miles I've walked, but you know, it's miles and miles. And so, and if I hadn't been feeling well or in a particular year, or heaven forbid it had surgery recently, or for whatever reason that might diminish my physical ability to get around, I don't know how I do it, but I'm very happy to be able to use my time more efficiently in the way that this platform will allow. And but I really encourage people to look at the exhibitors, to peruse through those exhibitors, figure out which ones might have offerings that would be useful to you. There's going to be a lot of material right there that you can learn about them without having to actually set up an appointment. But then you can also, set up either kind of quick meetings or more in-depth meetings with those exhibitors. And as I said, invite other people from
Right.
your
And that's really valuable when you go to an exhibit spot and when they start getting into the technical side or the financial side or whatever, and that there's someone back at the office who knows that stuff better than you, that you can actually share it with them. That's, I think it's very valuable. And just because I've been experienced, I've gone to as many of these events as I can, both in the water space and in the online education space. The coaching industry, expertpreneur industry that develops these educational programs will typically have a live event at the end that brings everyone together. But now they've turned those into virtual events, and there's one of them that is all breakout sessions, and so you're constantly going to different circles and networking with different people, and it would take time just to walk to find who's got the blue button and who's got the yellow flag, and where am I supposed to go. And the fact that we can just instantaneously pop into an exhibit room and say, okay, everybody turn off your mute, and who wants to go first, longest hair, or whoever raises their hand or whatever, and who's going to keep time. All right, let's just hear from everybody. And by the time you're done, you have met so many more people than you would have, and in a significant way, where you can actually introduce yourself and being prepared with, like, what is the introduction that you want to have, so you're not kind of fumbling around when you have that opportunity, and then hear from them, and just taking notes, keeping track, and of course the fortune is in the follow-up, right?
Yeah, and for anybody who hasn't yet had the opportunity to do breakout rooms in this virtual format, I want to reassure them that it's very different than being in the 50-person Zoom meeting. When you go into a breakout room, you really do get to have these small group conversations that can be, I'd say, more engaging than in person, because if we're in person, we might be standing around with a cocktail glass and kind of going like, oh, who do I talk to next? When you get into this breakout group, you're right there, and everybody's got some sort of shared interest. And anyways, I just surprisingly have found it to be a better way to have meaningful conversations with people and meet them. Just kind of stepping back to the WEFTEC as a whole, WEFTEC Connect as a whole, I'm really encouraging people, because as with any WEFTEC, there's a lot going on. So it's really important before the week starts to get in there and really figure out what you want to do. Now, the thing that's a little different here is that there are things that you can do after the 5 days of WEFTEC Connect. But for any piece that you want to be part of the live chat, or you want to be, really engaging with the exhibitors or with colleagues, you want to make sure that you've got your schedule laid out, that you can take care of those, that you can meet those opportunities, and particularly any of the live events, the live presentations or the live plenaries, all those kinds of things. I think being there in the moment makes a difference.
And if there's someone particularly that you want to meet, you want to make that point of showing their presentation, say, I've been following your work, I just heard your presentation on this, I'm doing that, would love to get your feedback.
Yeah. And then yesterday I had the opportunity to meet by video with the Commission of Clean Water Services out of Hills, Washington County, Oregon, which is basically the Portland, Oregon suburbs. And their commissioners are all attending WEFTEC Connect, which I think is really cool. And I guess many of them have done that in the past, but this is the first year they're all attending. But they're doing some things. They're kind of trying to plan out what events they'll go to. And these are people who are leaders. They're I don't know if they're elected or appointed decision makers. I think they're elected. But the point is, they're not day-to-day, they're not running a water treatment plant. They're making kind of high-level strategic decisions. And one of the things that they're doing is all of them, they selected one of the presentations that all of them are going to go to. It happens to be Mr. Nielsen from Denmark is presenting on Monday afternoon, I think it is. I don't remember the exact time. And they're all going to go to this, and then they can use that as that sort of inspirational conversation. He's talking about sort of like the future of water treatment in a sustainable sort of direction, and tying it to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But then they can take that back. They've got that shared experience. They can take that back and use that as a platform for discussion about their own utility. And I think that's a great example for others out there, where they could get a group of their colleagues they all attend the same lecture or presentation or whatever, and then can talk among themselves like, okay, so what are the lessons there for us? And I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, this could really be something that people very consciously decide that, as an organization, we want to get better at X. And there were this series of presentations. And rather than, I mean, there's only so much information that one person can take in at one time. We talk a lot about fire hosing, and, we have so much information, and when we fire hose people, they can't take it in. But to recognize that there's this wonderful collection of information, and to have the opportunity over the course of the next 3 months or year or whatever to make that commitment that within our organization we are going to all watch this presentation and have that conversation, and how does it apply to us, right?
Yeah. And when you think of it that way, WEFTEC connects a pretty good value, because whatever, if you wanted to bring in an expert to your utility or company to come talk to you guys, you'd easily spend more than what you're probably going to be spending on just sending some people to WEFTEC Connect.
Yeah. And one of the other things about these big conferences is often this is a place where you can hear from people that you may not have access to any other time, both in terms of like thought leaders and policy leaders. You guys are going to have the head of the EPA, and that one's available publicly to anyone, right?
Right. Yeah.
And just to find out what's going on and stay current, and certainly how COVID is interacting. We actually did a whole, when this first hit, we interviewed 30 people for this Water and COVID-19, Your Home and Health. And people like David St. Pierre and Andy Criken and Kyla Jacobson and some of these other folks that, making those connections of, all these wipes that people were using and then flushing, or how wastewater became an indicator to show us where COVID hotspots might be developing, and how is that all coming together as an opportunity for people just to generally know what's going on.
Yeah, and COVID, of course, the technical sessions, I don't think that any of the technical sessions will be dealing with COVID, because unless maybe they added something in late, but our normal process, the applications would have had to be in before we really were into this situation. But there are definitely, there's some, throughout WEFTEC Connect, if you're on Eastern time, the early afternoon each day, there are these kind of breakout discussion groups that you can join. And some of those are on COVID related topics, and not just the technical aspect of COVID, but also managing through COVID, managing your workforce, what's it like to work from home. I mean, you've got kids, you're trying to homeschool your kids and all that kind of stuff at the same time. But also, I believe it's Wednesday afternoon, don't quote me on that, but there will be a fireside chat with between Walt Marlowe, who is the executive director of WEF, and Dr. Sanderson, who is WEF's chief medical officer and also a professor of medicine at Howard University. And he's just been such an incredible resource for us, not just in terms of how COVID operates in the wastewater stream, but also in helping us, understand what is the process for vaccine approval, and when should we be able to trust a vaccine, and all those sorts of things. And he I find him to be very reassuring to listen to, because he just speaks with such measured confidence and authority. So anyways, I would encourage others to attend that session. I think that they'll find that to be very interesting. This conversation between Walt and Dr. Sanderson.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so critical. I mean, that we need to be thinking about our workforce, and I was fortunate enough to be able to cover the Transformative Issues Symposium last summer, and really getting into those issues of, I mean, everything from the aging workforce and recognizing we have a lot of expertise that is maybe leaving their 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever job, but still have a lot to contribute, and virtual opportunities provide that way to contribute when you no longer have somebody paying for your travel. Bringing in greater diversity, and not just asking them to dance, but actually asking them to dance and letting them be the dance leader. And how do we really maintain, develop, minorities, women, disabled?
Well, I am. There's so many reasons why I love being part of WEF, but one of the things I have really valued is the process that and the pathway that we've been on for the last couple of years around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that inclusion, of course, is very important. And that's both from internal staff, in terms of the WEF staff, the workforce, and then just how we do our work overall. We appointed a task force, a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force a little over a year ago, to work on, help us think this through as an organization. They came up with a number of recommendations, some of which are already in implementation, but we now have a standing committee on which is a subcommittee of the board that is going to help guide the organization, and a consultant team that is working with us as we continue our journey. It's a long and very important journey. But I want to say specifically with regard to WEFTEC, one of the things that a program that we started 2 years ago called Inflow very specifically reached out to historically Black colleges and universities, and the students, both undergraduate and graduate students, who are in generally sort of engineering and biology, to try to bring them into our sector. And the way that we've done it is to introduce them to WEFTEC, bring them to WEFTEC, and had all this, not just kind of come and dump them at WEFTEC, like, here you go, because as we've already said, it's overwhelming, but to really help them meet people, navigate WEFTEC, find the pieces that are of use to them, and connect them with potential employers. And there have been a lot of these employers that have sponsored that program, and we've been very grateful for it. Now, so it's grown, and then this year we're like, okay, now what are we going to do with it in this virtual context? And Inflow has continued this year. It's been the programming has happened in advance of WEFTEC, and then those students will be part of WEFTEC as well. But they've had their sessions already, but trying to excite them about and help them see what
kind of get prepared. It's like going on a foreign study program. You kind of
and we found that the water world is very foreign to a lot of people, because if they think of engineering, they're thinking of electrical engineering, maybe mechanical engineering, but they're not really thinking about, they don't know that there's all these opportunities in the water sector.
And how much of it is not just the STEM side, but actually getting engaged in understanding communities and politics, and how organizations work, and outreach, and opportunities to do community development through the projects that we create.
And more and more we know that people entering the workforce, they not only want a job that is mentally challenging and pays them and all that kind of stuff, but they also want to know that they are making a difference in their communities and making a difference in the world. And the water sector is there really isn't a better place for them to be able to do that. And so just to help them see that opportunity, and also how fun the people are in the water sector.
Yeah.
But we want everyone to know that they're included, and I'm sure we still have lots to learn, but that's one.
I want to, a couple things I want to touch on before we go. On the one hand, as someone who's been doing media about water, and that started in part to really do some of that translation side, that the mainstream media wasn't covering water. They didn't get it. They didn't see the really cool stuff that was going on, and how could we make water sexy and get that out there. Although we're seeing tons of shows, tons of podcasts, tons of varied quality, and just some of the. There is a need when we go online, whether it's for an event or a podcast or a show, to really amp up the energy. People are watching you in a little box or maybe on this thing. You got to have some energy, but at the same time, we don't have to dumb it down. And I kind of see a lot of this sort of, oh my God, we're going to talk about water, and I mean, especially as women, when you got your PhD, when I got my PhD, we didn't go into our defense. It was like, okay, we're going to talk about botany, and that's really cool. It's like, no. There's a certain level of professionalism. There's a certain level of recognizing the importance of the work that we're doing, and to have a recognition of that, with energy, with excitement. And I think people have been adapting their, even in the live space, adapting their presentation styles to incorporate stories, to incorporate, in case studies, and recognizing the so what factor, the what does it mean, and not just, throwing up a bunch of slides with presentations and a bunch of data and formulas and stuff like that. There has already been some of that movement, and certainly as we go in the virtual space, how people recognize their role as entertainers, but also maintain that professionalism, that commitment to
Yeah.
But anyway, so I see that, especially when we bring in new folks, like with Inflow. By the way, I wanted to mention there's a very good new series that Words on Water has just started on equity. I watched the one with Kathy Bernardino Bailey from Cincinnati, with Randy Newman from Philadelphia, and Tony Parrott from Louisville, where they really got real about their experiences as African Americans. What both positive, and it wasn't just sort of the that was so great, I had these mentors and everything, which I think we started to do some of these presentations, and really said these were things that were not good, these were not helpful, when and I had literally had tears the whole time I'm watching this thing, because it's like we need to exercise good leadership and recognize how we need to cultivate leaders.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten a chance to listen to that one, but I caught the first one in the series, and it was the same thing, where it was powerful. People were being honest, which meant that they felt safe, and at least in that setting. Obviously they haven't been safe in their lives, and if you listen to it, you'll find out that. But it also addresses some, at least in the one that I listened to, some of the very real things that we need to think about at WEF, and some of the practices that have seemed very harmless and fun, but can make people feel really left out. And I need to wrap up for another meeting here, but it has been great fun to talk with you. And I'm glad you lifted up that series, because it's we need to know each other's stories, and that's how we learn. So.
And frankly, and on a kind of a down to wrap up on, but I think for a lot of women, certainly for me, when I made that transition from working for a large organization to going out on my own, I think that my conference experience really changed.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't have protection anymore, and when things happen, and things can happen in a very large environment, throw in drinking and all that kind of stuff, and it's like we really there is a safety factor associated being part of the event online, and situations that can come up that can be very uncomfortable don't happen.
Yeah, and I think that when I say safe, that they feel safe, I mean, well, yeah, maybe you're physically safe because you're online and virtual, but also they felt safe in that conversation.
Right.
And it's safe, they trusted that conversation and our WEF space enough to be that honest and direct with us. And that is a big gift. And I don't take that lightly.
Yes.
So I think
I look forward to seeing more of that. Like I said, people think online is just out to the whole world. You can create these very safe spaces. We've been doing it with the Women of Water online leadership circles, where people can really share their experiences and have support in working through solutions and tools and ways to move forward. And there is that aspect of the community where you could find someone and go off in the corner and kind of talk about, I'm having this situation. How can I get help, and get yourself out of your office situation and get some feedback from some wiser folks. So I know you need to go, and I know we need to wrap up. And folks, thank you so much for joining us. Please do sign up for WEFTEC Connect. We'll include the information below. And thank you, Lynn, so much for joining us. We really appreciate all this last minute preparations that you've taken the time to be part of this Water Goes Virtual series.
Okay, it's my pleasure. And I'll see you at WEFTEC. All right.
Online, folks. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.